literally got out and went under basically the front of the truck, just laid in the dirt and slept for like 20 minutes in the dirt in the middle of the desert, and was just like, this is so bad. And then the sun started to come up, and Lauren was like, all right, like you got to try to get like 70 miles in today. And that was just like, the weight of that just like hit me, and I started crying, and I was just like, but I knew I was going to do it. And so it was just like, I just had to like scream. I think I like chucked a rock and then just like started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Running Effect podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Schluter. I'm thrilled you've clicked on to this episode today. It is the perfect episode for the month of January because it's going to allow you to think bigger and better for your goals, not just for this month, but also for this year, because the man I'm speaking with is one of the craziest guys that I've ever had the privilege of speaking with on the podcast in the nearly 500 episode catalog of the show. His name is Brooks Bash, and literally just in 2024 alone, this guy ran 100 marathons in 100 days and ran from LA to Las Vegas for the Speed Project, which I think is like 300-ish miles in change, straight route running from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. And he announces a new challenge that is definitely harder than the two I just mentioned that he's chasing after in 2025, where he details his thought process and his training leading into this new challenge and event. And I just love Brooks' mindset that he goes into these challenges with, as well as just like his life and how he lives his life. It's unbelievably inspiring, to say the least, and I'm going to try to keep this intro short and just let you soak up the wisdom and inspiration from Mr. Brooks Bash. Absolutely love this one. I think it's the perfect episode for the start of the year. And if you guys enjoy this conversation, please share it with a friend. Majority of people find their favorite podcast through the recommendation of a friend. So be that friend. There are a lot of people who the Running Effect podcast would be their favorite podcast. They just don't know about it yet. So share it with a friend. Make sure you're following or subscribe to the show so that you never miss another episode. And then if you enjoy this episode in particular, consider giving us a follow and a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, you can actually write a review. Always love seeing those, so take a minute to do that. And without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this conversation with the man, the myth, the legend. Like literally, this guy is crazy. Absolute legend. Mr. Brooks Bash. Mr. Brooks Bash, Mr. makes me feel so washed at life in so many ways. Mr. Founder, running across the country, 100 marathons in 100 days. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really, really good. Where do we even start, man? Where do you want to start? This is your platform today. Do we want to spill the tea first for big things upcoming? Do we want to recap the marathons?
We could go back to the marathons and relive in that for a bit, and then go to the big reveal.
Okay, let's do it. So we talked about the marathons. I want to say I had you on the podcast late February of 2024. I think you were in the 80s at that point. Take me through the completion of the marathons and how the body was doing after that.
Yeah, so about 80. It was weird. There was a sweet spot from like marathon 20 to honestly 90 where I was just like the running man. Like nothing hurt anymore. Like it was easy. Yeah, like I was burning fuel more efficiently. I didn't have to eat as much. It was a weird, I think my body would just got used to it, and I was able to just wake up and run a marathon, and that was just life. It's almost as if like I went back in time as when humans used to just run around and literally run around all day. Like I kind of tapped into that, which was cool. Like I was thinking clearer than ever before. I was happier. I just felt like a better version of myself, which was super, super cool. And then what was interesting was that I was doing this to raise money for my company. And so we were getting kind of close to our goal where it made sense. I was like, all right, maybe I should not just run a marathon every day for the rest of my life. And so I mentally said, okay, on day 90, I said, I'm going to stop at 100. So 100 will be the end point. And what happened when I mentally set that end point at 100 was insane. Like everything fell apart. I got injured. I got fatigued. I got tired. It started to be less fun. Like it's as if my brain literally was, because it was open-ended. It was like, we don't know when this is stopping. We're just going to get used to it. But the second I set an end point out there, like the wheels fell off the train. It was crazy to experience that. So much so that it like down and down and down and down. And on day 100, something flared up in my Achilles where I kind of had to walk like the last couple miles of that last 100th marathon. and literally like would not have been able to run on day 101 because it was injured so bad. So that was a cool like psychological experiment that I didn't mean to do. That happened out of that.
Yeah, what do you think that taught you about the whole journey and project of it, as well as how do you take that info going into future projects or challenges, just kind of knowing yourself and knowing how your brain operates now?
Yeah. I think it's, we put limits on ourselves and we put endpoints, and it's good and bad. It's like if you have a goal you're trying to get to, you could potentially make it a bigger goal. So your brain thinks it's bigger. And so then you actually can get to it easier. Um, but it could also limit you to physically what you're capable of if you're only trying to get to that point. When people are just running one marathon, people usually break down, on that mile 23 area just because their brain is like, oh my gosh, I'm so close. And you're kind of using everything you've got and you run out of it. So, yeah, I think it's a good lesson on just how you can use your mind and how powerful it is when you're going after these extremely physical things. But it's also extremely mental as well, too.
Are you aware of how crazy you are? And I say that very genuinely. And I know you as a person, like you're a great guy. You're not psychotic. I don't want to make it out to be that way to the listener, but like, do you conceptualize how crazy 100 marathons is in 100 days?
I don't think I do. And what makes me even crazier is that in my mind, I go to like I need to do something bigger and better, and that wasn't as good as it could have been, and I should have ran them faster. And I'm constantly my worst critic, and so there's a layer on top of that of it's so crazy, and I don't even think it's that crazy. So
Do you think that's why you're able to do it though? Because I think for someone like me, I wouldn't even go out and try to attempt something like that for the specific reason that I would think I have so much mind work to do before I could even accomplish something like this. Because I think the reason you're able to accomplish that is because your brain is like light work. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I have like I don't know if I'm sure you've seen the movie Inside, was it Inside Out, with like the little people in the brain.
Hmm.
So I have that for sure, but there's also like a layer past that where there's like a little bleachers of haters that also just sit in my brain, and they'll throw stuff up of like, whoa, you did one of your marathons on a treadmill, like that's cheating, or oh my gosh, 15-minute average, like on marathon 89, like you're whack. And so those are kind of constantly going in my brain as well. And so yeah, that's another element as well that pushes me.
One of my favorite quotes I came across last year in regards to haters was, quote, "Your haters are out there holding their breath, waiting for you to fail. Make sure they suffocate."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to suffocate mine.
Do do you think, I mean, maybe you know if there people probably have a handful of haters in life, whether they're like whatever, middle school friends or whatever it might be, people in the present day. But I think a lot of times, like when I study the best of the best, even like someone like Michael Jordan, like yes, there were definitely people who hated Michael Jordan, but he kind of played it up in his head, like people who didn't even exist hating him because it just
Mhm.
drove him and pushed him further. Do you experience that at all?
Yeah, I'm like if I literally took a survey on all of my followers and everyone who follows me, I don't know if I'd actually find someone who actually hates on me. It would be hard. Maybe someone who would have like an opinion of like, yeah, I don't think that should count that you like split up the marathons throughout the day. But like, shut up! I made up my own thing. Like, I'm not going for a world record.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think there's many Brooks haters out there yet.
Well, what I'd be curious about is like people project so much, right? And I think people get jealous of what they don't have. And you probably, I mean, you make me feel soft in a good way where I want to go out there and do better things with my life, which I think is a testament to how the things you're doing are making an impact in the world. And I wouldn't call those people haters, but I think that there's probably a subset of people out there that you don't even know about that are like, oh gosh, like this guy's doing things that I know I could do, but I'm not doing. Because one of the things that stuck out to me in our last conversation with each other was you were just like making marathons sound so easy. And you kind of went into that of like, you can do so much more with your human potential than you're actually, achieving. And that was impactful for me. And I think a lot of our audience, and I think it's the truth. And so then I think when they see someone like you or like a Goggins figure do these like godly feats, and y'all are just so chill about it. They say they say true hell is when you meet the person you could have been. And
Mm.
I think for a lot of people, that's probably someone like yourself, where it's like, oh, wow, I'm sitting on my couch watching him run a marathon on Instagram Reels. I said I was going to run a marathon for the last 5 years, and I haven't. It's got to be a gut punch in the best of
Yeah,
ways, though.
sure, yeah, and I appreciate that. But I hope it's more of an inspiration to be like, come on, like get out there and I really try to when I do these things and post videos about it and I try to be as like positive and happy and like make it seem fun. Whereas I think the Goggins of the world are so aggressive and
Yeah,
that's
you're
his
a
like
bitch. Yeah.
yeah, that's his character, but like that doesn't seem very approachable of like you want to go do that, And so I try to like do these extreme things with a smile on and lightheartedly so it looks like, oh my gosh, if he's having so much fun doing this insanely ridiculous thing, maybe I could have fun, just going for a 5K or something like that. It's kind of the intention. And obviously there's the bigger layers of like, okay, like if you really want to push yourself and have a goal, you can go for it. But yeah, that's sort of the intent behind it and hope.
How much of it is genuine lying to yourself? And I think it can be a good thing because I genuinely think you need to lie to yourself through some endurance feats. Like during the 100 marathon, like, yes, you're right. You're like crazy positive character. And even like meeting you in person, super positive, happy dude. But like how much of that during the marathons, even not publicly, but like internally, are you just like, you're fine, this is fun? Like real quickly, there's a popular saying from BYU's coach Diljeet Taylor. She'll scream at her girls team when they're doing like the most gut wrenching workouts. She'll scream like, "This is fun! This is fun!" And it's
Yeah.
like clearly not fun, but she's like, "Well, the whole point is like flip your mindset." Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's layers to it. I genuinely like I love moving my body. Like if I go a day where I don't get to run or work out or whatever, I like really messes with me. And so for me it is very therapeutic and fun. There's obviously the extremes of like when I did the speed project, that was not fun. So I think I found the buffer point. But for the marathons, they were fun. Like it was the non fun part was like I still had to run the business. I still had to have a family. I still had to like be in this modern world and be on top of things. And so the non fun part was like trying to juggle that and deal with the stress of like I still have to run, but then also handle all this stuff at the same time. And so that was the not fun part. So kind of I guess what we were talking about prior, like this like stress and mindset would take me out of the fun. But when I was just running and I could have music on and it was fun. I truly did enjoy it.
what was on the Brooks Bash Spotify Wrapped last year?
Uh, Last year, my number one was John Batiste. If you've heard of him, he's
I
awesome.
do know the name, yeah.
You should check him out. He's amazing. It was. This is very funny. Number two was AC/DC,
Okay.
which I was going through a phase right now. Number three was Gracie Abrams, if you've heard of her.
Hmm.
And then I went Beyonce and Chapel Ronan. So very poppy with like a flair of jazz and AC/DC.
He's diverse, man.
That's me.
Take me through the journey from 100 marathons in 100 days. And when we were talking in the midst of that, you kind of made it known like this is like soft training for the speed project to then the speed project. I know you were kind of beat up in that time period in between. What was the journey like physically as well as how you were physically? How did it affect that mentality going into it?
Yeah. So I mentioned on the day 100 something flared up in my Achilles that I was like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. And so there was a 3-week window of stopping the marathon and starting the speed project. And so I was like, I got to get this thing, whatever it is, healed. And so I went to PT. I was doing recovery. But then the haters in my head bleacher, they were like, well, I actually hadn't ever run a real marathon, like get a medal, sign up with a bib. And the LA marathon happened to be right in between uh, ending and the speed project. And so the haters were like, well, you ran those marathons so slow. Why don't you show people if you can go fast? And so me was like, all right, I'll show you guys. Um,
Oh, I love you, Brooks.
and so I signed up for LA and just like gassed it and went as fast as I could. And like with no speed training, got like a 3:30 time, which I was pretty stoked on. But that little Achilles thing flare was really talking to me, and so then I had a 2 week window after that to no, sorry, 1 week window after that before speed project to somehow miraculously heal myself. And so I thought it was fine. I did a bunch of rehab, went to PT. Um, I thought, a marathon a day, that's perfect training for the speed project. Well, all the marathons I live in Santa Monica were on the boardwalk, so they were pretty like zero gain, um, and capped at 26 miles, 26.2, and so yeah, I literally started the speed project. I like to say the only thing that the 100 marathons gave me for the speed project was false confidence, because I was going into it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be so good. Like, people did a few 50-mile training days, like I did 100 days of this, I'm good. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, I started the speed project and it literally went right up the Santa Monica mountains, so just gaining, gaining, gaining. And that Achilles thing on mile 6 came back like 10x, and it felt like someone just like stabbed me in the leg with a knife, and it was just like super gnarly. And so literally from mile 6 it was like, what are you going to do? Like, this is really bad. So then I like changed my running form a little bit and it took the pressure off. But then by mile 20, my knees were like giving out. I couldn't even take my whole weight because I had just changed everything up. And I literally just had to sit on the ground and like almost cry for a bit because I was in so much pain. And that was kind of like the ramp up for the speed project.
Man. Okay, so I know a normal training day, like if you're, even training for something remotely and you have pain like that. So let me phrase it this way. If you experienced that pain on mile 6 on a normal training day, would you have cut that run short?
Yeah, I would have gotten an Uber and went home.
So how in the world were you? I mean, how far is the speed project? 300, 400 miles?
Yeah, I ended up 320 was the total.
Like, how'd you do it?
That's like, remember the
Are you
stupid
shocked
part?
looking back that you did it? Like going back to that Brooks at mile 6, what was his mentality? Was it like mile by mile? Was it like I'm gonna drop out?
No, and like, I know me, and I know I wouldn't drop out. That's just not me. It was just, I think, the stupidity of like what I was getting myself into, and just not quite knowing the severity of it. Is what really hurt me. But yeah, what really started to get me was, it just became so daunting because in my mind I was like, I'm not going to quit. Like, this so much came to this moment to do this, and so here I am. Like, it's all on me. Don't quit. Um, and I knew it was never really an option, and so it was just like, how can we figure out how to do this? And so, if whether it was KT tape and poles and way too much Advil, just figure it out. And so what really messed with me was like, each day we'd be falling farther and farther behind schedule because I was going so slow, and I would be sitting there looking at like how much we had to get done to finish, and it was just like, the dauntingness of it was insane. I'm like, I can barely walk 10 yards up the road right now. Like, how am I going to get 60 miles today? Like, this is insane. So that's what the shitty part was, for sure.
What did that teach you about your own human mental performance and how much more you're capable of than you probably realized?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, you can do anything if you really just don't quit and just keep going. It's not to say that it'll take the pain away, because it never really went. It was just really, really, really painful. Um, but yeah, as with life or my business or anything, it's really just like, the only thing that can truly, really ever stop you is yourself. Um, and so just take one step in front of the other, and get through it. But it also did teach me, on the other side of it, there's repercussions for those decisions. And so it took me 6-7 months to fully recover physically and mentally from those decisions. And so it was funny because I was like, people started quitting halfway through the speed project, and I was like, why are they quitting? Like, people's like, oh, my ankles are swelling, and mine were like triple the size. Like I couldn't put shoes on. It was insane. I was like, well, my ankles have been swollen for like 2 days. Like, am I just like stronger than these people, or like what's going on? And then I realized that, oh no, it's going to take 7 months to like fully recover, and they didn't want to sacrifice their whole year over this. And so I think those are the type of things that I was unaware of, that I just kept going, because I just didn't know the repercussions for it.
Are you at peace with that decision to finish, or looking
Oh
back, do you wish you would? Oh, yeah, you're happy. Of
yeah,
course you
yeah,
are.
for sure, yeah.
You could have broken every bone in your body, and you would be like cast up on the podcast, like, hell yeah, man, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say was the lowest moment during the speed project, and how'd you overcome it?
The lowest moment. There was a moment on day four, day five. We were going through a park called Power Lines, and we basically, it's just this huge off-road section, and um, we had stopped for the night. Well, it was supposed to only take a few hours. It ended up being like this huge hill up this like sandy mountain. It was insane. You couldn't get your. It was just gnarly. So it was taking way longer, and so we weren't able to get back to where we were supposed to be to actually sleep for that night. And so we ended up just like trying to sleep in the truck. And so it was like me, Lauren, Pierce, and Yuli just in this truck trying to sleep seated. Like, and my hips were so tight from running all day that I just couldn't get comfortable. And so I literally got out and went and like under the basically the front of the truck, just laid in the dirt and slept for like 20 minutes in the dirt in the middle of the desert, and was just like, this is so bad. And then the sun started to come up, and Lauren was like, all right, like you got to try to get like 70 miles in today. And that was just like the weight of that just like hit me, and I started crying, and I was just like, but I knew I was going to do it. And so it was just like, I just had to like scream. I think I like chucked a rock and then just like started. Um, and so that was a low moment for sure. Yeah. But I
Do you
just,
feel like you're going back to your primal days, sharing those stories?
yeah, that was,
Checked a rock. Let's go run 70 miles, and my
yeah,
body's broken.
yeah, yeah. And that was the start of the worst day, because then I started to finish power lines, and the crew went into town to get supplies, which is like an hour away. It started pouring rain, so now I'm like by myself in the rain. I didn't have like any gear on. It was a desert day. It's raining. Then 10 minutes later, it starts snowing. So like snow is now dumping on me. I'm freezing, and I'm like calling my crew, like, where are you guys? And they're like, oh, we're at Starbucks. Do you want anything? I'm like, get back here now. Um, so that was gnarly. And then on top of that, now the team speed project teams who started, you know, less than 12 hours, I guess less than 24 hours before, were now passing me. So I've been going for 5.5 days, and they started yesterday, and they just start flying by me. So that in my mind was like a mental just screw up, because I'm like, dude, I've been going for 5 days, and they're like passing me within the day. Like this is this is gnarly. So yeah, that was just a whole day of mind fucks.
A lot of people on the podcast or sports psychologists I've talked to or books I've read within running or business talk about the importance of having a why, when you set out to do something big and just for your life in general. What was Brooks Bash's why during the speed project? Did that change over time? And did that help you get through it?
Yeah, I think it was always the same from the start, and it's just like to see what I'm capable of, and I haven't really found those limits for myself. And so that was the intent going into it, and I think the race, through just like, life has a way of just messing with us. And so it was like, oh, you think that you're gonna do this, well, like, try this. And so it just threw a huge curveball at me from the very start, with the injuries. And so then, I was really down on myself for 24 hours of like, I should have trained better, I should have this, I'm bummed I'm hurt. But then I had a moment where like a flip switched, and I was like, you know what, like, this is what the race is trying to teach me and show me and challenge me in a different way. And so I should just accept that, and go for it. And so it's trying to show me what I'm capable of, and that's going through this adversity, and that's what I'll do. And so that's kind of the mindset that stuck for me.
You mentioned the seventh-ish month period coming out of the speed project, and we talked about this in person in Austin, when I saw you about kind of the I was like, "When how long did it take you to run after?" And I
Yeah,
was like, "What?" Take me through, the mental burnout side of the sport. I don't think it's talked about enough, and I think, this could be a good occasion to have someone who's gone through it speak about it,
yeah,
because I think it's a now, granted, your situation is just crazy. Like, no, normally I think my listeners can relate to the guest. Maybe they can if we break it down, break it down, break it down, break it down. But I think burnout is like actually pretty common in the sport, but not talked about enough. Like, I was pretty honest on the podcast in 2024. Gosh, how are we in 2025? Crazy.
mhm.
Time flies by. Just like I wasn't enjoying running, I was burnt out from it. And they say distance makes the heart grow fonder. And I think that's true for running too. And, going into this year, I feel like for the first time I'm like excited about running again, but it's because I took like significant time off. All that rambling aside, platform's yours. Speak on burnout, how to overcome it, just general thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think it really depend. It really depends. I like I said, pushed it so hard that like there was physical things going on, and then there's a mental side of it too, where like I did spin off into probably like a 3-4 month honest like depression period of being like really really low. And that was just being so depleted and so down, and just kind of going through it. And so that can really happen, from being burnt out. I know people get like post marathon blues where they, you're just so high, and then all of a sudden you come down the other side of it and don't have a goal. And it's really hard to sort of pick yourself back up and start going towards something again. So yeah, that was like a really gnarly period for me that took a lot longer than I anticipated going through. What really did help was, and even with normal burnout, I think it's like when you're training and you're pushing and you're going and it's go, 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 it almost like takes the fun away from it. And so like, it's almost like back in, playing high school sports. It's like do your drills, do your training, do your conditioning. And it's like go, go, go. And like that's necessary, but like we have to remember that we enjoy doing this, and there is a love for it. And so what really helped me was once I was past the injuries, to just like go to a run club and just not really need to go fast. I wouldn't track it. I wouldn't bring my watch. I wouldn't use Strava. I would just run and like be with a friend and chat. And if I wasn't doing that, I would just put on a playlist and just have fun, and like not be so aware of all the metrics and data and having to like push into that upper level of training. And I think if you can do that and just sort of fall back in love with the sport, then you can start to grow from there. But you need that like base foundation before you can kind of go up.
Before we get into this next psychotic challenge of yours, what do you want people to take away tangibly from your story of running 100 marathons in 100 days and then running from Los Angeles to Las Vegas?
uh, Other than the product I created at Earthy is will feel you to do
That's why I
crazy
did it, by the
things.
way.
Yeah.
It's all earthy.
It's all Earthy. Yeah. So
You
that's
too
the
can
one.
run from LA to Vegas.
Yeah, yeah. Just get on a monthly subscription. um, no, I think
Hey, it certainly can help. It certainly can help.
it definitely helps. Yeah, I think it's like don't limit yourself. You're capable of so much. And go for it. If it sounds ridiculous, I'm sure it doesn't sound as ridiculous as running a marathon a day for 100 straight days. And even when I started that to me didn't sound that ridiculous. So just have fun. Like life's short. Do something ridiculous. Get yourself out there, and go for it. I think would be the biggest takeaway. But also be smart about it. I wasn't maybe as smart as I could have been for the speed project. So maybe if you're going to do something big, don't do something super big right immediately after it. Spread it out. And then the other thing is like I'll go back to the burnout or the even depression of like it is normal to experience that. So like what really helped me, I was listening to an Olympic athlete speak on a podcast, and they talked about their experience of a post depression after the games. And it's normal. It's just a reaction. It's like when you lift your muscles at the gym, they get sore. Well, like when you really push yourself, there's a reaction that happens in your brain. And so when I heard that, it made it what I was going through okay. Initially, I was like, "This is wrong. I shouldn't be feeling this. Something's wrong with me." But then I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Like this is normal." So like there's protocol I can do to help me get out of this. Talk to a therapist, you get with people, da da da. And so I just started doing that, and it kind of worked. It just helped me get right out of it. And so yeah, just be aware that if you push yourself really hard, things happen, and that's normal, and you can get out of it.
One of my favorite quotes I came across last year that was true, but also made me chuckle. Normally they're pretty deep, and I just chew on them, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a good quote," but this one made me laugh. Madness and genius are next door neighbors, and they borrow each other's sugar.
Nice. There you go.
And I think it's so true. Like the line between madness and genius is so thin. And
Yeah,
you running 100 marathons in 100 days or running from LA to Vegas, it's like, is this madness or genius? Probably somewhere in the middle. Um, One thing I
definitely.
did want to ask you about that I didn't. What was the final like mile, final few moments like? Um, as you're kind of like getting in the Las Vegas Strip, and like you get to that sign, you finish it. One of my favorite photos ever is the photo of you hugging your wife at the sign. Like, what was that moment like, and more so, what were the emotions of it all?
Yeah, I mean, I just got covered in goosebumps just thinking about it. It was cool. Like the energy of that last day, every day sucked so bad. And I would wake up and just be like, I didn't, this is going to be a terrible day. But I woke up on that last day and I was like, I'm in striking distance. Like I just have to, I think the last day was only like 32 miles too. And I was just like, I'm there. Like I can do this. I gritted through 300 miles of just eating it and pain. So I'm like 30 miles. I could crawl there if I wanted to. And so the energy of that day was already different. Um, and I will say also, we learned on the last day how uh, poorly I'd been being crewed and nourished the previous days. Because on the last day, they would stop every like 3 or 4 miles and have water and food and like kind of do a whole reset. And the amount of more energy I had on that last day because of that was like through the roof. The previous days they'd stop every like 10 or 12 miles and I'd get refilled, which looking back was not the best decision. And so yeah, that last day it was still painful. I was still in a lot of pain, but I was moving with like an urgency of like let's get this done, and I can do this. And so yeah, I just started chugging and chugging, and the closer I got, it was just all cool because it went from like still in the desert, which had been like the whole race, to like now I'm in the suburbs. Now I'm getting closer. Now I can see the strip. Now I can read the signs. Now I'm here. And so it was cool. Like yeah, the last I think like 2 miles, I was literally just like running and like literally crying and like I'm here. I mean, the pain was still there, but I couldn't feel it anymore. I just was like go go go. And then yeah, the last like you kind of get up and it's a little anticlimactic because it's like the Vegas sign, so there's always like tourists lining up to take a photo, and I'm like running by them, but I like had my poles and I like chucked them and I ran and smacked it and yeah, just like collapsed. It was amazing.
Transitioning, the moment we've all been waiting for, the moment I've I think you texted me about it, and then I on a call with Pierce, just being super close friends, we talk on the phone like every day, close to it. It feels like
He didn't
I
tell you,
brought
did he?
up. No, well, so he began to be like, "Oh, did you hear about it?" I said, "No," and don't tell me because he's gonna reveal
Okay.
it to me on the
Yeah, yeah.
podcast. But he said enough that made me more curious, which was just like, I was like, Brooks said this is the hardest challenge he's ever done and or he'll ever do. And I said, well, he ran 100 marathons in 100 days. He did this big project. And Pierce was like, no, I can confirm this will be the hardest thing he's ever done. I was like, oh my gosh, do I even want to know? So the floor is yours, Mr. Bash. Spill the tea.
Yeah. So back to the haters in my head, and so what they've been telling me for a while is that people are saying I'm just a runner, and that's all I do is run, and that's easy now. I can clearly run. So I was like, all right, let me see, let me see what I can do. And so let me see how I want to say this. I'll just go for it. Basically, I started my endurance career through triathlon, and I kind of was building up the sprint distance, Olympic. I did half iron, and then COVID happened, and so I wasn't able to do the full Ironman. And then that's when I got into running because all the races were canceled, and I just was like, I'll just run. And so I figured, all right, I can kind of dip back into that world. Um, but again, I'm like, I want to things that scare me. I want to go right at them and not be afraid of them. And so my biggest fear in life are sharks. They scare me to death. Any sort of deep water, I am not well. And so I was like, all right, let me see, let me see what I can do here. And so the challenge I will be doing is called, I'm calling it Catalina to Whitney. And essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on Catalina Island, which is off the coast here in Southern California. I'm going to start on Catalina Island. I'm going to swim from Catalina across the channel to Long Beach, which is a 22-mile swim.
Oh my
From
gosh.
there, I'm going to get on my bike. I'm going to cycle from Long Beach to the little town right below Mount Whitney, which is called Lone Pine, which will be about 350-mile bike ride. And then from there, I'm going to run from Lone Pine to the top of Mount Whitney, which is a 14,000-foot peak, and then back down to Lone Pine, which will be a total about 50 miles. And that's what I'm doing.
Well, if you get killed by a shark, this is definitely going to be played on like NBC. This clip of the podcast.
No, that
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. So
yeah,
how'd you come up with it? I mean, there are all sorts of different things you could do to
yeah.
achieve that goal.
I've wanted to do Mount Whitney for a long time. I've tried 3 times. Two of them, I've literally been at like on the hike starting it, and I've gotten rained out twice, and so that's kind of been like my great white buffalo for a bit to like get to the top of that mountain. Um, but I haven't had a chance yet, and so then I was like, it would be cool to like do Mount Whitney just on my legs and basically ride my bike from my house to Mount Whitney, go up and down. So that was kind of already brewing in my head. And then this like fear of sharks slash I need to conquer this was starting to brew. And there's actually a whole like Catalina crossing committee where people will do this challenge. There's an official crossing that people do. This one is psychotic. It's you have to you can't touch the boat, so like you can't touch anything. You're on your own, and you have to do it not in a wetsuit, so you have to be in like a speedo, which is crazy because it's very cold. And so I just had a friend attempt it last year, and he got like literally like he was 2 miles offshore and he almost made it, but he got hypothermia so bad that they had to pull him out of the water. And so I was like, okay, like that's a challenge that would really scare me. I haven't swam in a while, so it's like really kind of putting me out of my comfort zone on several levels. Um, so I was like, okay, maybe I do the swim thing, and then I was like, well, actually, what if I just put all of those together, um, and did this full this full challenge? And so yeah, that's kind of how it all came together.
What's the timeline for this, and how are you planning on training for it? And how
Yes,
do you train for something like this?
yeah. So I'm gonna do it this summer. Right now we're kind of looking at July, but yeah, it really depends on water temp and also the snow conditions on Mount Whitney. But summer will be the sweet spot. Training, I am gonna hire like a coach to work with. In the past, it sounds crazy, but I actually haven't really ever trained for any of the things that I've done. I just kind of start running or just kind of wing it, which has worked in the past. But for this, it's obviously extremely dangerous from the ocean perspective. The cycling, I think I overlooked the cycling part, as that's like the easy part. But like a 350-mile ride is pretty significant, along with like obviously being on roads and sleep deprived, and that'll be gnarly. So yeah, I'm actually in the process of interviewing 2 different coaches right now, and they'll help me lay out a plan of training and how I can like build up to that workload. Because the biggest thing is like injury and burnout. Like I don't want to be swimming my brains out so much that by the time comes, I can't use my one of my arms. So yeah, the training will start pretty soon.
What, as much as you can tell, how long would something like this take? Because I have no,
So
like, I'm not a swimmer. I have no concept of how long 22 miles would take to swim, other than I couldn't make it a mile. I mean,
yeah,
also, let's just state that a mile and like a lap pool, most people can't do. Like,
yeah, I know.
it's
Well, it's
crazy.
kind of it's messed up because the if you look at like the ratios of like what the distances are, like the Ironman, the swim's only like I think it's like 1.8 or 2 miles.
Oh, I have seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but then it jumps to like, I should just look it up. The Ironman is the swim is 2.4 miles, the bike is 112, and then the run is a marathon. So it kind of, the swim is like very small in terms of mileage, and then it goes up and up. So going a 22-mile swim is like pretty ridiculous. And like proportionally, they kind of don't really scale the size, but 350 is a big ride. And then Whitney is it'll be end up being 50 miles because I'm kind of going from that town. But it's not just a 50-mile run; it's up to a 14,000 foot peak. So it's more of like a yeah. So in terms of time, I have no idea. Like I think a 3 to 5 day sort of window is what I'm looking at. It depends on how much sleep I'll want to try to get, but I think in between each stage, I'll probably take like a hour or two nap or so just to keep the hallucinations down. Um, but yeah, the swim, the people who have done it on that Catalina crossing, it ranges from like 8 hours to 20 hours is what it takes. So
Wow.
I think I'll be somewhere maybe in like the 12 ish if I can get up there, but we'll see. I do plan to take breaks and like get on the boat and like eat stuff, and not be as aggro as that crossing. And so that'll obviously add time. But yeah, 3 to 5 days.
Crazy. This question's maybe better suited for your wife. It reminds me of kind of Free Solo with Alex Honnold, if you ever watched that documentary. And he would just knock things out of the park. So then he kept setting the bar higher and higher, which kind of culminated in free soloing El Capitan. And I think a question that was posed to him that I think would be a good one for you is like, at what, right? You told me like your why is, along the lines of like exploring your human potential and figuring that out. If you accomplish something like this, which I have no doubt you will, knowing you and your determination, are you scared at all? Is your wife scared at all? Like, you're just gonna want to do the next. At what point will you settle? I guess is my question. Will you be like, that was the craziest thing I'm gonna do at this point? Because you would think you would have to come in with some sort of like, I don't know, life altering experience or injury, but you have done that. Your Achilles almost ripped in half at mile 6, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna run 300 more miles. So, will you ever
Yeah,
stop? What's
no,
the thought on
no,
that?
no, definitely not. It'll just evolve. I mean, the way I look at it, this is all still in my backyard. So, like LA to Vegas, I live in LA. The marathons I did here, this is Catalina to Whitney. It's all driving distance. And so, in my mind, it'll just, we live in a very, very, very big world, and so the playground will expand beyond that. And I think it'll be cool. Like it'll turn into trips with my family, and we can wherever it may be, it'll just become a part of kind of what we do. So no, I don't think it's gonna it's gonna stop. I know it won't.
Animal, animal.
Yeah,
Where can people follow along this journey? Are you gonna do a series about it? In any form, Instagram.
yeah,
Tell people where they can follow.
yeah. So I'll be doing most of it on my Instagram, just at Brooks Bash. I did just launch a YouTube channel as well, which I'll share that on my Instagram as well. So that's the best place to follow along and kind of see the build up. I'll be sharing a lot of the training that goes into it because that's all new to me, and so yeah, I'll be there.
And then where can people find the product behind, the thing that fuels the man?
Oh, Earthy. Everything on my Instagram. Just go there. It's linked in my bio. You can go to our brand page and check out more there. Shoot me a DM. I'll send you some samples for being a listener for free if you want.
Let's go. Best
Yeah,
product in the
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Gosh, what else do I want to ask you about? I guess a good question, I think, to wrap things up on a serious side of things is, and I asked you this kind of briefly earlier, but what do you want people to take away who listen to this conversation, right? We're in January, which I think is like a good time to catch people's minds in terms of like crazy things because everyone's, out of their minds in terms of what they think they can accomplish, which is a good thing in January. But like someone clicks on this podcast, they've thought about dreams and ambitions for the year, and this reaffirms a lot of their big dreams and goals. They want to have their best year yet. As someone who is objectively probably doing the craziest thing, like if you're a listener who's done crazier things than Brooks Bash, I'll give you equity in my company. Please DM me. Joking there. Don't sue me. But yeah, what would you say to people like coming out of this conversation in terms of like how they can do crazier things with their life, reach their biggest goals, and make 2025 their year?
I would say again, just go for it. Like go big, in this stage of like, what am I going to do this year? And it's like, oh, I want to, give up caffeine or I want to lose weight. And it's like, dude, like go so much bigger than that. Like, what do you truly want to do? Like, what do you really want to set your sights for? Like, yes, those things are great, but they're almost like the sub part of what you're really wanting to go for. And, um, yeah, dream bigger, do the impossible, I would say is what you should do.
I love it. A guy who helped me with the podcast a little bit towards the end of last year. I'm still kind of in the process of like figuring out what I want these episodes to be and general structure of them. But he comes from a non-running background, and one of the things he said was like, "Oh, it'd be cool to like, pick the brain of your guests on like the most fundamental basic things that then the listener can pull from." So I got 10 rapid fires for you. This might
Okay.
become tradition on the podcast, and you're the first person that I've ever done this with.
I love
And they're
it.
very like basic rapid fires, but my hope with them is like they'll listen to a podcast with like you or like an Olympic medalist, and it's just like helpful info. It's like what
Yeah.
people would want to know. So, first question for you, all rapid fire. What shoe are you currently training in the most?
I've been barefoot because I've been swimming. But I like if I'm going to say Ultra Torin is my favorite road shoe.
Number two, we'll say besides Earthy, what's your go-to recovery snack or meal?
Go to recovery snack or meal, I would say like granola.
Specific. I know I'm adding questions here. Specific flavor? Any specific flavor?
Whatever's, I think like, I forget the brand, whatever's on the shelf. Sometimes I make my own.
Number three, what one part of your routine do you swear by?
Sleep.
Four, what's one piece of gear you can't live without?
My phone.
That's actually a really good answer. Number five, what's your favorite workout for building speed? This is a good question for you. Curious.
Yeah. Favorite workout
Running 100 miles.
for building speed. I think recently it's been strength training.
These are supposed to be rapid fire. I'll grow and learn from this. Like roughly, what does your strength routine look like? And do you feel like a lot of runners out there are turned off by the gym? I think it's generally very net positive. What's your take on it?
I've been baptized within the last this year because I was so injured and needed it, and so this is a rapid fire. But like it's been amazing. Like I've been just a lot of body weight stuff, like single leg squats, deadlifts, uh, other just kind of like lower leg stuff, which has been amazing. And then now being back to running, I feel so much stronger. I feel so much more resilient. It's crazy. It's like immediately I'm like, wow, this works. So I
I love it.
definitely do it. Yeah.
Number six, what's your go-to mantra during a tough race or workout?
Just keep moving.
Number seven, what's your ideal pre-race breakfast?
It's also the granola.
Number eight, what's the best running route or trail you've ever run?
Best running route or trail. Oof. I did a run
Not
through
power lines.
I did a run through the redwoods a couple years
Ooh.
ago. That was so insane and beautiful.
Number nine, what's your most used app or tech gadget for training?
See, I'm anti the app, so Spotify.
Oh, okay. I like that. Number 10, what's one underrated tip for staying injury free? Outside of gym, because you shared that.
I mean, this is kind of if you do have a little injury, but what you do is I go and take these, like I'll get like a coffee cup from a coffee shop, like a paper one, fill it with water, put it in the freezer, wait a day, and then you take it out and you kind of rip the top off and it turns into this like almost like deodorant stick, but like it's ice, and you can apply it like right to the pain point and just like really get it cold, and that is super helpful and it works amazing.
clipping that for social media. What a tip right there. What a
There you
tip,
go.
ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
that, Brooks Bash, appreciate you coming back on the podcast, and let's run it back before
Wait,
this.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
What are your goals this year?
What are my goals this year? Gosh, I would have to. One of the things I did this year that I have not done in previous years that I think was super beneficial was created kind of this end of year review, which also included planning for the coming year. And I
Hmm.
think separate my goals into like whatever personal and business, and both of those sections are pretty filled out. So how I describe it, I'm very process oriented. Like, yes, there are professional goals that like even just reading off my list here, get flown out to USA's, get flown out to world champs, get flown out to a major city marathon, have an episode get 100,000 plays, do at least 26 in-person podcasts, 1 million podcast views from just 2025, getting top 10 on Spotify's charts for top sports podcasts in the US. Like, I've got all the, like, I could read you down the list. The personal, like, read
Which
26 books, visit my parents at least 12 times, visit my grandparents at least 12 times.
which one scares you?
I think the one I would be most proud of doing is getting top 10 on the charts. Anytime I get on the charts is really cool. Getting
Hmm.
top 10. I think we're the lowest any running podcast has ever gotten. We've gotten as low as 15. Sidious, which is like our
Nice.
kind of comparable podcast, they got 20th. So we got them beat by 5 spots. So if I get top 10, I think it would just be sick. Like, I already
Yeah.
know I already know the Instagram description caption I would use. Like, I've thought through this. I've thought through this when I have number one, like, because I know it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. But anyways, all that ramble aside, Brooks, like, my goal before I like went into my document and actually started reading you the goals is like, can I lay my head down? Or if you were to text me every night at 10 p.m. and said, like, how was your day? If I could say, I maximize my output. Like, if I can lay my head down every day and know that I gave that day a really good day of output, all those goals are naturally going to happen. Or
Hmm.
at least I'm doing everything in my power to control those outcomes. Because even like top 10 on the charts, that I have no control over the thousands of other top sports podcasts and what they do, but I can control my own process and what I do.
Hmm.
So I think for me, it's like a very bland goal, but for anyone, like, you can always control your output and what you're doing in life. And I'll be, if that results in 11th on the charts, I'll probably still be happy.
Yeah.
Maybe, or
Yeah.
maybe the haters in the grandstand, as you call
Yeah.
them, will be like,
I'll give you
"You're
some of mine.
soft."
I'll give you some
Yeah,
of mine. We'll
yeah,
transfer some haters. Yeah, that's cool,
yeah.
dude. It's gonna
So
be a huge year.
we'll see. But that's the thing. Like, every year, you grow and learn and evolve. And if I was to talk to you a year ago, you probably wouldn't have even started 100. You probably would have been early on in the journey. You wouldn't have run from LA to Vegas. You wouldn't have had this idea.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, gosh, I'm scared to talk to you a year from now. But it's all exciting stuff. So I guess for me, it's like, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And yeah, just want to get better with every single day, and be a good person, do good things, create impact for the world. And if
Yeah.
I can do all those things, and it's not to say I don't have those like tangible goals. I just read you a bunch of them, and there are
Sure.
many more. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think what it boils down to is like, follow your heart, work harder than you think you can work, do bigger dreams than you ever think you could. Like,
Yeah.
all the things that you preach and live out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I got for you. That was a
Dope,
long
dude.
response.
Yeah.
This is
It's a
why
good.
this is why I ask the questions, because
I know.
we'd be creating Joe Rogan episodes if I was answering
No, I love it. That's
3
cool,
hours
dude.
long. But
I
anyways,
love it.
I appreciate you taking the time to chat,
Yeah.
and stoked
Thank.
to see all the things you'll accomplish in the months
Yeah.
to come, and freaking stoked to follow along this training block.
It'll be
Creating
fun.
history,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Thanks
an
for having.
inspiration, truly. Like, out of any of the guests I have on, I think you're one of the ones that yeah, there are two sides to it. One side is like, I feel soft, but as you said, like, you want to be more of an inspiration, and it truly is more of that, of like, oh wow. And I'll even just give you a really quick example. Like, you're someone that showed me this could happen. So took time off of running because I was like burnt out, and then I had this 50K trail race like 10 minutes from me. The most I had run in like the 2 months leading into that was 4 miles, and I would like go on like 3 mile jogs like every now and again, just when I wanted to. For me, that's not training. Like, that's not training at all. For
Hmm.
anyone who trains seriously, that's not training. But I thought, well, I feel like I could probably run like 31 point whatever miles off of no training on a trail. Like, and if not, let's just see how far I can go. Like,
Hmm.
and you're one of the people that you're like, oh, 100 marathons in 100 days. And I'm like, I can do a 50K if Brooks can do that. So I ended up doing it, and it honestly wasn't that hard. And so, like, even in like very like tangible hard ways, you've inspired me. And coming out of this one, who knows what goal I'll chase after that's like 1/1000th as less impressive. But
No.
if I hope anything, I hope the listener can walk away with the same, you know, drive and ambition that you put into your life and into your goals. And that's certainly what I'm taking away. So
Cool. I appreciate that. Yeah. Go get 100K
awesome.
now.
Heck yeah, man. Appreciate you.